our friend, and for having this hearing. And welcome back, Mr. Secretary. Series of questions, if I could. Many of them are just yes and no. Under President Obama said, Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, General Dempsey, once said that, quote, improving our energy security improves our national security. So, do you agree with him?
Yes.
If gas-fired power plants provide nearly 40% of America's energy, do all gas-fired power plants get their natural gas from pipelines?
Yes, in America, pretty much.
Thank you, in America.
Yeah.
So now, and if 90% of our natural gas is transported by pipelines, is it fair to say, therefore, that pipelines are an essential part of our national security?
Yes.
Thank you. But the environmental left doesn't seem to agree with you. And they posted this headline the other day about delay wins the day. They want a delay. And what they're referring to are the delays that occurred over the loss that occurred was the Dakota Access Pipeline, which was operational, as you know, for 3 years.
Sure.
The Atlantic Coast Pipeline that went through 17 permits, federal government, and 16 state permits. It even went to the Supreme Court and got approval with it. And now they're even challenging the Mountain Valley Pipeline that's transporting gas from West Virginia to other states. So my question would be, could the loss of these pipelines that we just mentioned, could they pose a challenge to our national security?
In my view, yes.
Okay.
I think...
and it appears that some of our governors, like Cuomo and Inslee, may be abusing their 401 permit, their authority. But because of Cuomo, states in the Northeast, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, have to get their electricity from Canada and their natural gas from Russia. So whose economy is Cuomo helping? It's certainly not, is it Putin's? It's certainly not ours. So if I could, Mr. Secretary, as you know, the administration is about to finalize a new NEPA reform, significant rewrite of NEPA. And it's my understanding that nothing in the reforms get rid of any existing rules, but rather you all have developed something that might streamline the permitting process, and primarily so that the environmental left can't weaponize the permitting process. Now let me switch gears just for a minute. The government has called on manufacturers to produce more PPE. Hundreds of millions more respirators, plastic face shields, gowns, gloves, all are going to be necessary. They're all produced from this. This is natural gas. This is resins from natural gas. Won't we need pipelines to produce more PPE?
Yes, sir, ultimately we will. And to address your national security concerns, at least with regard to the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, it begs the question. We have an enormous naval facility down at Norfolk. We have an enormous Army facility in North Carolina, the home of the 82nd Airborne. It's very important that these facilities have ready reliable access to electricity, because they depend upon the private grid for the purposes of their power generation.
I've got a couple more questions, if I can slip in quickly.
Sure.
Wall Street, as you know, works on certainty. They depend on it. And the litigation and delays created by the environmental left have created the opposite, especially as it relates to what happened to coal. Are we about to see the same thing on Wall Street, developing concerns about pipelines and natural gas? Do you think there could be a threat?
Perhaps we are. The regulatory uncertainty will lead certain investors to back away from these types of projects.
So my last question, if 70% of our energy comes from fossil fuels, and if Wall Street stops financing gas-fired power plants and has an aversion to funding pipelines because they don't know whether they're going to be built or not because of the regulations, is this a positive or a negative sign for our national security?
In my view, it's a negative sign.
Thank you. So in the 6 seconds left, can you explain a little bit about maybe what DOE is doing to address this streamlining process and prevent the abuse?
Well, through the interagency process, we are contributing to the NEPA efforts, which I understand are going to be released very, very shortly. And to your point, they're not to reduce in any way, shape, or form the environmental concerns that the American people have raised. What we're simply doing is eliminating redundancies. I'll tell you really quickly, in the case of DOE, I made a decision very early that if another agency had conducted a NEPA, analysis with regard to perhaps, say, an LNG export facility, which we have some regulatory responsibility for, that the DOE would rely upon the other NEPA analysis. FERC is quite capable, for instance, in conducting NEPA analysis. So if they're already done the work once, there's no need for DOE to do a second NEPA analysis. Eliminating that step will save an enormous amount of money for the applicants who are looking to build these export facilities for LNG. It's just one small example, but it's a step in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.